Well, okay, I can tell you first, I have been a Fulbrighter myself, so I know personally what it was like to be a grantee, and now I've been directing programs for many years as well, so I see it as an administrator. The program's goal is to help foster mutual understanding between people of the U.S. and other people in the 180 other countries of the world. So we send, for example, we send Malaysians to the U.S., as I told you, for different sorts of programs. The purpose of it really is cultural, for them to get to understand America better, and for them to present Malaysia as well to Americans in their universities and communities where they are. And we also bring in, remember the Fulbright program is a two-way exchange, so we bring Americans as well into Malaysia to teach in the universities, to do research, and also to study as well. Well, first of all, we do like to see students who have done well in their studies, so they usually will have good grades. But that's not the main thing. We're not necessarily just looking at those with the top marks, and these are the ones. We're looking for people who know what they want to do in the U.S., why they want to go there. Because it isn't necessarily for everyone, but we don't like to see people who necessarily have good grades, but say, well, I'll go off to the U.S. because it has famous universities, for example. Well, that's not a good enough reason. We want to see someone who really knows, I want to go to the U.S. because I can get this done, or I can do that, and when I come back to Malaysia, this will help me in my career, etc. So people with a good idea of what they want to do. We also like to see people who are mature, because we realize it's not necessarily easy to go live in another country. And adapting and that type of thing does take a certain maturity. And we like to see people who are going to represent Malaysia well as well. People who are outgoing, can speak well, and present a good picture of Malaysia. So there's no list of certain criteria. We look at the whole person. And then we also like to see, each year when we send out a group of students, we like to see a variety of different fields. We don't like to see all of them going off in business or engineering or whatever. We like to see some in social sciences, some humanities, some engineering, whatever. But just get a good spread of different fields. I mean, we've just sent off one to do Spanish studies in the U.S., for example. Now, that's something that's very, very new for us. Someone in Malaysia who's studying Spanish linguistics, and you would think would go maybe to a Spanish-speaking country, but no, going to the U.S. because the U.S. has, first of all, large Spanish-speaking populations, but also excellent programs in Spanish literature and linguistics. So that's just an example of something that we wouldn't necessarily expect to get, but we got. And we're sending people now. We're getting a certain amount of interest from people in psychology, and as well as the sciences. So we're getting a little bit of everything, as well as the arts. Now, I want to say the arts, and performing arts especially, and the arts, were really originally kind of the core program of the Fulbright. That's what we like to see. And we have sent a number of dancers and artists to, over the years, famous ones, as a matter of fact, from Malaysia to the U.S. So we like to encourage artists as well. Well, first, I think just getting the word out. I mean, still, surprisingly, a lot of students in Malaysia are simply not aware of the possibilities. So we're trying to get the word out. We go to universities, we make presentations, we go to educational fairs. We have our social media where we have Facebook and Twitter and everything. We're trying to get the word out, but still, I think a lot of students are just not aware. The other thing, I think, is that there may be a misconception among Malaysians that it's too difficult to get. When it isn't really. We don't get that large a number of applicants, so we would encourage anyone who's interested to apply because, as long as they're good students, they know what they want to do, they stand a very good chance. It is not too competitive, really. I know that getting people to go to the U.S. sometimes is a bit of a problem because they're so used to going to the U.K. or Australia, and this whole notion of the U.S. sometimes is a little bit different, and they're not quite as familiar with it, and so if they're given a choice, well, go on a Fulbright to the U.S. or go on a scholarship to the U.K. or Australia, sometimes they'll opt to go to the more familiar U.K. or Australia. So we're kind of fighting that a little bit, trying to entice people to the U.S. because we think there's something there for them. Probably the most important problem is that they simply don't finish their applications. So many of them will start the application process and then put it off, and finally never get it into us. Maybe they think they don't have a chance or something, but it's really too bad because often we'll think, we have a nice pool of applicants because we have 30 or 40 that have started the process, and at the end we only get a few that have actually turned them in. So one of the problems is just getting people to follow through and finish them and get them in. There is a conception, I think, again, an idea that it's a very difficult process to apply, and it really isn't. Other than supplying your transcripts, filling in a form with your personal information, what we look at are two things. We want you to state what it is you want to do in the U.S., which is fairly straight. It should be straightforward. I want to go to the U.S. for this or that, or study this or that topic. I want to go because. And that isn't necessarily a long document you have to write. And then we also like to see a personal statement written by the individual, simply talking about who he or she is, a little bit about what made them come to where they are now, something very personal, and that's all really. So, and then we do like to see recommendations from professors that they've had, or maybe employers, but that again I think is not necessarily that difficult to get. So really when you think about it, the application process is not that hard. It doesn't take so much work. It does require someone to be able to state, very simply, maybe in 2 pages, what it is they want to do, why. Also, one thing that Malaysians have to understand, potential candidates, is that the process must start very early. Almost about, I would say about 1 year ahead of time. So if you plan to go to the U.S., say August, you should be getting your application in the previous August. It is a long process. Not long in doing the application, but simply long is involved in our doing the selection, because we have to send it off to the United States. There's a selection process there. There's a selection process here. And then there's a placement of people in institutions. So all of that, we need time. So getting people to think ahead of time, about 1 year ahead of time, is one of the issues we have. So if someone knows, yes, I want to go in about a year, start it right now, immediately. I think they do. Of course, when they do come back, we don't necessarily follow them around to see exactly what they do, but we do encourage them to stay in contact with us, to join and be active in the Fulbright Alumni Association, so we can get an idea of what they are doing. And we are aware, because we see them in the newspapers, or we hear about, oh, so-and-so is doing something, and that's a Fulbrighter. So yes, we do know that they are doing things. And they do develop, I think, in the U.S. a good sense of community service, because that's very important in the United States, students to do community service. And I think when they come back, they are stimulated and enthusiastic about doing it, and I'm sure they are doing it. And we have people, Marina Mahathir, for example, is an example of a person who has come back, and you can see how active she is in the various activities she does. She's just one example among many. So yes, they are coming back, and they're very active. Well, it would vary from year to year. Now remember, as I told you, there are different types of programs. So you have, for example, a certain category of Fulbrights for study in the U.S. for a master's or a PhD degree. We also have a program called the Foreign Language Teachers Program, where Malaysian, usually English graduates, will go to the U.S. to spend 1 year in a U.S. university teaching Bahasa Melayu, and also taking courses and to improve their English, to taking courses on TESOL, that type of thing. So that's another program that we have. Then we have the senior scholars, of course, who go over for research. So maybe leaving a program out, I'm off the top of my head. So I would say of the students who want to go to the U.S. to do a master's or a PhD, we're probably only sending about 5 or 6 per year, which is not many. But, you know, we're not really getting that many applications, frankly. So those who think, oh, it's too competitive, well, not necessarily. I mean, we may only end up getting 12 or 14 or 15 applicants for 5 or 6 grants, which is not so bad. So unfortunately, we'd like to see more. We'd like to see more interest in applying so that we can get better candidates. And we hope that if we do, then we can also start offering more grants every year as well. No, well, if this is going out to Malaysian students, I encourage them to apply, because, as I say, the opportunities are good. If they have any questions or worries, contact us. Contact Kalis here at MACEE, and she can explain the process and set them at ease that it's not so hard, and the whole thing can be done fairly quickly. And we're looking for good people. And if we're just simply, you do not have to be the top of your class in order to get a Fulbright. We're looking for good students who simply know what they want to do and look ready to do it.